Hello, everyone. One of the stories that continues to develop across various news sources is the Kharkiv offensive and counteroffensive. And the information coming from the two warring sides is contradictory. That makes it confusing. So, on one hand, we have Ukrainians who are saying that they have stopped Russian advances and started pushing back. On the other hand, we have Russians who are saying, no, that's not true. So I tend to believe Ukrainians, and not just on principle, and also not just because in general Russian information had proven to be unreliable at best. But there are a couple of things I want to point out that basically drive me to trust Ukrainians more. Very specific things. So let's break this down. First of all, Ukrainians are not denying that the fighting is intense. Okay? So they're not making absolute statements, unlike the Russians. They're saying, yes, we basically halted their advance, but Moscow had intensified their attacks. So that is very important, because there is a big difference when somebody honestly tries to describe a developing situation, like the Ukrainian side, and when somebody is trying to say, nope, we won, we are in control, blah, blah, blah. So big difference there. And then there is this. There's this big piece. This is on Ukrainian side, Kyiv Independent, talking about Russia's losses through the entire course of this war that are now inching toward 500,000. And it is a big article. I suggest you pop into Kyiv Independent. As I mentioned before, it's available in English, as you can see from this screenshot. But how is this relevant specifically to the information we're getting from Kharkiv? Well, because through the course of this war, Russia has been blocking any efforts to determine what the true damage has been. And in a way, by revealing the numbers based on whatever data they were able to collect, Ukrainians are actually doing Russians a big favor, because look at that paragraph right there. There is an economic time bomb that can actually affect Russia's state of economy, not just right now, but for years to come. Because if you think about it, consider this. So we have 500,000 people, most of them are men, who died in this war. Because Russia, as we know, knows only one way how to fight, and that is by throwing quantities of bodies at the front line, whenever it can. So we are talking about 500,000 families that are now left without providers, very likely, because a lot of, maybe not 500,000, but probably at least a couple 100,000, because a lot of these men were married, or they were the sole provider for their aging parents. And if you start analyzing this number alone and the economic implications, you can see that this is this is formidable. This is a lot. Now, one of the questions that is justifiably asked in the article is, how reliable are these numbers? And once again, Ukrainians are saying, well, we understand. You don't have to believe us, because in a state of war, it's very hard to keep accurate records. So you don't have to believe us. And they pointed out right away, early in the war, people were questioning our information as we submitted it from the battlefield. People were questioning, is it really that bad? So eventually, other countries pitched in trying to collect the data. UK pitched in, France pitched in, and then eventually they started pulling the data together. So this is not just Ukraine's information. This is a collective effort. And wherever Ukrainians messed up and their information was not quality, they have acknowledged this and they said, okay, we're going to ask for help. And so this is why, when once again we go back to talking about the Battle of Kharkiv, I tend to believe Ukrainians when it comes to this information. As I said, I understand that this staggering number, 500,000 in losses, it is hard to believe. I understand the skepticism. I get it 100%. So I suggest, folks, that you, in addition to Ukrainian forces, go and look at French and British sources, and you tell me what you see there. Because I think, like I said, Ukrainians did a very smart thing by acknowledging right away that collecting accurate information was going to be hard and asked for help. And then the last but not the least is this. So shortly after Ukrainians started mentioning that, hey, by the way, it looks like we may have halted Russia's progress in the Kharkiv region, there was a vicious attack. These are the photos from the site on a large market, basically a hardware store in the city of Kharkiv. Here are some photographs from the site. As you can see, it's just complete and utter devastation. Okay? So, I think this is in response. I think that's what is happening. I think Ukrainians did make progress in the Kharkiv region. And I think what we're seeing over here is Russia's retaliation for Ukraine's progress. Not only that, but when this happened, when the store got hit, there were people in there. There were many people there. It's a popular place, so possibly 200 people there. There are 2 people have been killed that we know of. Very important point. And at least 24 were wounded. Again, that we know of. And what is really telling, once again, is Russia's sheer cynicism when covering this event. Because on their websites, they said that they struck a military storehouse that was masquerading as a hardware store. Following that, how anyone dares to put restrictions on Ukraine and what it can do and what it can fire at Russia is unconscionable. There's been another strike in Crimea by the underground forces there. And remember, we talked about this. You know, one of the biggest risks, some very smart people pointed out, is that this is leading to a huge underground movement with a lot of violence and not very good equipment. So that has happened. We're still getting information in. All we know is that there was a large military antenna that was struck not far from the city of Alushta. And Russia continues to interfere with affairs of other countries because it is now aiding Lukashenko, who is a dictator every bit as bad as Putin, in fighting opposition. Over 400 Belarusians, members of opposition to Lukashenko's government, have been added to the criminal investigation database in Russia. So they're not just messing with Ukraine, they're not just messing with EU, they're messing even with their ally Belarus. That's Russia for you.